This is OneSoccer Today for Monday, March the 14th, 2022, with your favorite boys, Adam Jenkins, Oliver Platt, Gareth Wheeler, and Alex Gange-Ruzik. I know, it's generous. I think if I say it enough, people might eventually believe it. It's subliminal, hoping that it pays off. Oliver Platt with his OneSoccer mug, sporting it for the very first time. I'm not sure if he tried to drink his coffee as quickly as he possibly could so that he didn't have to hold it throughout the entire show, but here we are.
Tea, not coffee.
T-Nug, I really should know better. We're off to a flying start. Let's begin, gentlemen, with Major League Soccer. Speaking of not off to a flying start, the Canadian MLS sides are pointless. We know that, but the one that really stands out is the minus 15 goal differential. Look, we knew it wasn't going to be easy or smooth sailing right off the top for a lot of reasons. You get CF Montreal and Champions League, Toronto FC waiting for their big signings, and then you have roster rebuilds throughout Major League Soccer, especially is the case with the Vancouver Whitecaps trying to find some sort of continuity. I don't know that we knew that or thought it was going to be this bad, Wheels. Which winless MLS side is surprising you the most or giving you the most concern?
First off, it's still early. Let's be clear about that. If you speak to like any coach around Major League Soccer, they want their team, basically finding form come July and run that through the rest of the season. No promotion, relegation here. It's just about making the playoffs, and you don't play your way out of the season after just 3 games. So let's get at that out of the way. But the team that you're looking at right now, where you're saying, oof, it's got to be the Vancouver Whitecaps. Houston's not a very good team. They go down there. They take a lead 1-0. And this is a team at the end of last season that when they got a lead, they were much more resilient defensively, difficult to play against, difficult to break down. So far through 3 games, this isn't a tough team to play against. I think they're very soft defensively. They've looked weak in the defensive positions. They've looked weak in the midfield. They've looked weak in wide areas. I hate to repeat myself and pat myself on the back, even though I like to do that once in a while, Adam. When I write, just when they hired Vanni Sartini, I questioned it right away. It's just like trying to recapture this feel-good vibe that was established a season ago under incredible turmoil was always going to be difficult. And when I heard Axel Schuster say that there was a number of top candidates that wanted this job, head coaches and managers that have won European trophies before, I'm like, what made Sartini the right man for this job? And I think he's a great guy. Like the energy is infectious. His demeanor on the touchline is amusing to say the least. But you need to be a little bit more than rah. And I just don't see that this team has really changed the way that it's played at all. And in fact, players have regressed and not stepped forward. I'm not saying that he isn't a good coach. I think he might very well be a good coach. But when you could have maybe brought in someone to kind of evolve this team a little bit more and get even more out of them, it was always a risky hire. And now you have Brian White, the savior from last season, not playing. And some of the players that did produce last season not playing up to that level. You lose Crepeau, a leader in the team. The team looks short on leaders right now. I think that of the 3 Canadian teams, they're the side that you look at saying, man, they might have the most difficult time turning this around and really giving this 2022 season a real go.
Let's go to our resident Vancouver expert, Alex. Do you agree with Gareth Wheeler's assessment that Vancouver should be feeling the most disappointed?
I think I agree with the assessment. They should be feeling the most disappointed just because, again, we'll say with Montreal, the Champions League, different beast. And, the further they go in that, it's always going to be tougher to keep an eye on the MLS season. Toronto FC, it's a complete, rebuild. For them, it's just a process. It's the famed process, not to steal the Philadelphia quote on that one. With Vancouver, they're the team that people expect to win now. And they're not winning now. So you're going to start to wonder, where are the wins coming from? And I think they haven't been helped by the start. I think you go out in that first game, you come out flat, you lose 4-0. Okay. And then you make progress against New York. You don't win. Maybe you come to regret that. What I've seen is they've actually gotten better in each of the 3 games. Like this Houston game, they generated the most chances that they have. I think they also conceded the fewest. The XG was tied. So you're looking on the balance of the game, it was an even game, yet they lose because they failed to properly line up their defensive line on one ball, and then they allow Darwin Quintero too much space. And we've seen what this guy can do time and time again in MLS and even in Liga MX, what he can do with too much space. And then you lose 2-1. And I think Vanni Sartini was, after the game, you could kind of tell that he was a bit frustrated just because he thought his team had played relatively okay. I think there's still a lot more to come. I agree with Gareth in the sense that some players
relatively okay. This was a playoff team last year, Alex. And look, Houston, I think in everyone's estimation, was going to be a bottom, 5 team in Major League Soccer. When you're talking about coming away with level XG, like, come on now, the bar needs to be higher than that, doesn't it? Especially when you go up 1-0 in a game. I mean, I don't know. Too many mistakes. At some point, like this season, expectations was playoffs, wasn't it? It wasn't just like, let's see our way through and see if we can go in and be competitive. I mean, it's much higher than that. I think the stakes are higher than that in Vancouver as well.
Yeah, well, I think it's also a tough away game. I mean, the Whitecaps have historically always struggled in Texas. It's unfortunate reality of it.
But it's Texas in March. It's not Texas in June or July. I think you're being far too kind on this team, man. Again, this was a playoff team last year. A playoff team, and you're going to, I don't know. This has been a miserable start to the season. I have a hard time when I watch this team play, come away with any kind of confidence that they're going to be able to turn this around. I just don't see it.
This is the very same Gareth Wheeler that preached it's still early and is now doubling down on his effort. I know, Wheels.
Like they're not. I'm not chucking them in the waste bin. I'm just like, I don't know what putting a lipstick on this pig right now does. Like when I watch this team play, there's just very little positive at any right now. Ryan Gold looks a step or two off. It's like, I don't know.
Well, I'm not disagreeing with the idea that they've been struggling. I was going to point out that Ryan Gold hasn't, for whatever reason, looked like himself. Part of it's been deployment. This last game, his touch looked off, which is rare. At the same time, I'm just looking at from the Whitecaps perspective. You also get 2 away games. For whatever reason, one thing we looked at last year, their away record last year was abysmal. I think they finished with something like 2 or 3 wins. The only reason they made it in to the playoffs was because they were so good at home. They ended up winning 7 out of their 9 games at BC Place, got 21 points in the bank just at BC Place in just 9 games. That was the reason they made the playoffs. And obviously, as we've seen when they're on the road, they struggle at times. They just, for whatever reason, can't get that match winning moment. And that showed in a game like Houston. I'm just looking at these 3 games. With it being so early in the season, it's all about process at the same time. Like I think Adam mentioned, it's all about getting into form, or maybe it was you mentioned getting into form in July. So I'm looking, okay, there's progress on the pitch. It's not getting results right now. I think that has to be answered for. I think Vanni Sartini has to find a way to get wins, because at a certain point, it doesn't matter if you go, you have 7 great games and you get no points. That's not going to be good for anyone. It is a results driven business. And I think it is worrying. You look at the schedule. They have LAFC next. If they play like they did against Houston and lost, well, they're going to get clobbered by LAFC. Let's be real. But if they continue to progress and continue to improve, there's at least a chance that they can find a win, as long as they continue to take steps forward. So for me, from that perspective, that's what I've been looking for. That's what I've been seeing. They just haven't been taking advantage of that in games and getting the points and getting those wins.
All right, we got to get some words in from Ollie. It's been 8 minutes and we haven't heard Ollie's opinion on this question.
Best start to the show of all time.
That's exactly right.
Considering going and making some popcorn or something, I was enjoying the debate there. For me, the question that I still am waiting to be answered with the Vancouver Whitecaps, and I think it's been a question we've been asking for some years now, is I look at not just this team, but this club as a whole, and I'm still wondering, is there really a culture of winning that's being created at this club? Because as Will said, this is the team that was in the playoffs last season. You're expecting them to kick on and be the best Canadian team out of the blocks this season. And instead I get that it's tough to play away in MLS, but we get a team that goes to Columbus and looks completely unprepared for the first game of the season. And then they go to Houston, who I don't think will be in the playoffs this year. They take the lead and the game just drifts away from them, right? There's such a lack of kind of killer instinct and winning mentality in this group. And that's something that goes beyond Vanni Sartini. That's something we've been talking about with the Whitecaps for some years now, as I said. So that to me is what I worry about with Vancouver, is that it's not just the coach and the team. It's something that's bigger than that within the club, where there's just not this expectation of winning and being a top team that you need to obviously do that.
Ollie, they lose Bikel, they lose Crepeau, and they bring in Blackman. Like, does that show that, eagerness to go on and improve the team?
And Crepeau didn't seem desperate to stick around, did he?
No. I don't know. There's red flags there. Absolute red flags.
I'm going to take this opportunity to find any transition possible to move the conversation forward. And I heard the word red, so let's talk about those Reds. I'll come right back to Ollie for a little. I want you to imagine, Ollie, that instead of the very polite tea-drinking Englishman that you are right now, that instead you are a very rich Italian man somewhere in the beautiful country that we all love so much, sitting there watching this on whatever platform you have in Italy to watch soccer, going, what in God's name have I just signed up for? Are you concerned if you are Lorenzo Insigne? Surely there's a lot of pressure on him. However, will there be enough time and enough opportunity for him to make things right?
Well, I think firstly, to kind of get what's Insigne sitting there thinking in Italy, watching this right now, that's the $1 million question, isn't it? I don't know the answer to it, but that's going to be the crucial thing here. Is you have some players who come over, like Sebastian Giovinco, and they don't have the pieces around them immediately, but they excel on an individual level, and they're willing to wait for the team around them to be formed, right? And they quite enjoy the lifestyle. They like being over in MLS, and it all works out great. But then we also have seen a lot of other players come from Europe, big name players come to MLS, and when it's not there immediately, and they're kind of looking around and seeing guys who are nowhere near the standard of player that they're used to playing with, and they're losing games, and they're not even on one of the top teams in this league, which is a step down from the league they're coming from, that they start to wonder, maybe, what am I doing here? And so the way Insigne potentially reacts to that situation, particularly the remainder of this season, I think is an open question. I don't think you can say for sure that just because this guy is being paid a lot of money that he's immediately going to buy in and he's going to love it no matter what. So that is a question, I think, for TFC. And like I've said this before, we were talking about it last week. The big challenge Bob Bradley has here is he has to find a balance between, playing young players right now, giving them an opportunity to show what they can do and show they belong in this team, building a team for the next 3 or 4 years, but also understanding that come July, it's going to need to come together very, very quickly. Because as soon as Insigne is in Toronto, this team has to go into win now mentality. You can't waste a day, right, when you've got a player like that on that kind of salary on your roster. And that is a very tight schedule for him to build a winning team.
Gareth, your thoughts?
This whole idea that Insigne sitting in Italy right now, watching TFC, thinking, what have I done, is absolutely insane. When did he sign the contract to come to Toronto, by the way, for 4.5 years? In January. Where did Toronto FC finish at the end of last season? Second worst team in Major League Soccer. They were an absolute dumpster fire. They've turned over the entire side and are starting to add players. Players still need to go. You don't think that he's aware that this is going to be a process? You don't think that he's aware that some of his Italian mates are going to come over and play in Toronto with him? Like, it's a process here. He's focused on Napoli right now. He's going to be paid generational wealth to come over, be part of this Toronto project, which he's exceptionally excited about. Like, this whole idea that we're trying to read the minds of people that we've never met in person before is absolutely insane. It's a complete rebuild. It's a tear down, build it back up. I live in Toronto. It's happening on every single corner of every single block. Houses are torn down. They pop up in a much better version. It takes time. I don't think that any player is as that flippant, oh, you're not good right away. Oh, 3. Come on now. He signed on. He had to be aware of the process that's going to be playing out here in Toronto. So Ollie's right in terms of his final comment. Come July, things need to be much better. And I'm just looking at the game model that Bob Bradley's playing right now. Man, it's such a better style to play than anything that we've seen post Greg Vanney. It is. And there's young players that are taking a chance. This is a real audition time for some of these players. But still, the biggest problem with Toronto FC right now is players still need to be cleared out. Big contract players need to be cleared out. This takes time. And once they go, other spots are going to open up for other better players to come in, more experienced players to help some of these young players see through this process. But we're still in such the early stages. Insigne does not care right now. We'll see where the team is come July.
Just to be clear, I don't think Insigne is even thinking about TFC right now. In reality, I
You
doubt he knows what
insinuated that.
I didn't. I
You
doubt he even
basically
knows
said,
what-
"Oh, it's a problem. Oh, if the team's not good, like
Okay, well,
He's
that's
in a
not what I
pretty
said.
good
That's not
Scudetto
what I
race
said at
too,
all.
so it's not like Napoli's
Roll the
struggling.
tape.
He's got a
I
lot
doubt he
on his
even-
plate in Italy.
I doubt
Roll
he
the
even
tape.
knows what the score was this weekend for TFC. What I'm saying is when he gets here, that is when it's going to get interesting because it might not all be great straight away.
Alex, quick comment from you. I think when you see the TFC fans, especially on social media, and we understand that social media doesn't represent all TFC fans' viewpoints, but I think they're wondering, they don't expect him, or they're not necessarily worried that he's going to come in and not care, but I think some people are wondering if he's going to have the time to save the team and take them to the playoffs, if that's an expectation from them. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough. I think you have to see where the team's at in a few months, what kind of, how players develop. I think I think Bob Bradley, I have to be encouraged by what I saw. For example, that switch to the back three, despite what he had available to him. We talked the first 2 weeks, transition defense. They actually looked, pretty solid on the transitional defensive side for the most part with this new formation. So as long as he keeps tinkering, keeps setting something up, I'm sure the platform will be there for Insigne to come in and play well and help to carry this team. The question is, by that point, will they be A, too far of the playoff race, and B, will they have the roster to even go far enough as he wants to go with them? And those were always the questions that were asked when he was signed. So I can't see that much has changed. But again, with Bob Bradley, I'm sure he'll be working. He'll be looking to bring some players in to try and make that possible. But if you're looking at Insigne, I think it's 2023, 2024. Those are going to be the big years where you really want to compete for something with him.
Well, Gareth Wheeler, since you asked me to roll the tape, let me roll the tape for you as we move on to CF Montreal, where you were confident, you were trumpeting that they were the play this week, CF Montreal, to upset the MLS Cup champs. So what is more embarrassing in your eyes, Gareth Wheeler? Is it the NYCFC MLS Cup banner that was revealed before the game, or that prediction that has CF Montreal now sitting in dead last in the standings?
The other two Canadian teams lost as well. I said that was most likely. And the MLS schedule makers, by the way, did Montreal no favors, playing Wednesday in Mexico City and have the first game on the weekend in Major League Soccer, by the way, a 1 p.m. start on Saturday. What did Montreal do to piss off head office at Major League Soccer?
Well,
that's
good for the
unbelievably, yeah, maybe, but man, that was exceptionally different. I didn't realize they played the first game of the weekend. The banner was much more embarrassing. Banner, it was like someone just went to Staples and printed it off and just put it up. Like they play in a baseball stadium and you have this banner. I used to have a dodgeball team in this city where Chuck Norris had a big Chuck Norris banner in the background. It was way better than the New York City banner. I'll bring it out for next week's show, okay? My Chuck Norris banner. It's
Gareth distracting us. Gareth distracting us from his prediction with a Chuck Norris banner.
CF Montreal clearly had eyes, for the game against Cruz Azul, which is winnable this Wednesday. Camacho doesn't start. There's changes at the back. Kone doesn't play. We'll see. I still think there's enough positive when I look at this Montreal team. They should have had more than one goal, by the way. And self-inflicted wounds, 3 of the 4 goals. It was just of Montreal's doing, just trying to play out of the back, making poor decisions, poor clearances. So we'll see. I've no doubt they're going to get their MLS season back on track. It's been a very difficult start. Orlando City, Philadelphia, New York City FC. That's tough. Playing Champions League with some significant injuries. Chouanier, Toy, Hamdi. Go down the list. Kyoto was suspended last week. So I think there's less concern or less worry about what Montreal are or where they're going than potentially the other two teams right now.
Alex, your thoughts on the first appearance of NYCFC in the Bronx and it not going CF Montreal's way?
Yeah, it was a tough one because you watch it. I mean, Montreal, again, it feels like a repeat of the other 2 games. They're in it. They're having a good game, and it's just self-inflicted wounds. Like that the first 2 goals that they gave up, it was just, you can't give up goals like that if you're going to win, and especially the one, it's causing a whole debate there because obviously I like to be tapped into Montreal Twitter. They're pretty fun, but it's just absolute carnage there, the debate, playing out the back versus playing long. It's if you ever have time to go through it in French, it's quite the debate. And just reading through it, it's hard to blame them, because while obviously Montreal has a project, the one thing about Wilfried Nancy, he's been very clear, is he has an identity of play, and I think that's part of the reason why they've been able to get some good results. It's clearly some growing pains. You see it when they're in their system, their defensive side of things, them trying to play out the back, and it's just they end up making some mistakes that you can't make. And it's reflecting the fact I looked back last night just to kind of refresh my memory. It'd been a day or two since I'd seen the Montreal game. They actually won the XG battle. I know that's not going to tell everything, but it's just the fact that New York City had something like 1.4 XG and scored 4 goals tells you everything you need to know about Montreal's defensive performance and why they weren't able to win that game. So I think it's going to come back to something that I said last week, I said the week before, they're just not managing those big moments good enough. And I think until they do, they won't be winning MLS games. But the good news is they have Champions League. They did very well to, the great escape after it was 19 shots against, just 1 goal against in Mexico. They have all the chance at the Olympic Stadium, where they're always very good in Champions League. So it's good for them on that front. But man, in MLS, it's been frustrating because they've played 3 good games if you look at it overall on the balance, but they've just made too many mistakes and given up way too many goals.
All right, I'll give you a chime, but I also want you to be the first to answer the question. Of the 3 Canadian MLS sides, with Gareth Wheeler's very important, it's still early in there, who is most likely to turn things around? Fastest and the most emphatically.
It's Montreal, because they've played the best football and the schedule does ease up after Atlanta next weekend. There's a lot of games coming up and home games as well, where you can imagine them taking points. But they have to stop giving goals away. Like it's just getting pretty laughable at this point, some of the decisions they're making. And I don't think it's even a case of, it being playing out the back versus playing the long ball. I think you just got to play out the back in a more intelligent way that makes sense, right? Like the whole point of doing that is to draw pressure in, to draw opponents into a certain area of the pitch and then go somewhere else, right? Find the space, find the free man. And instead, Montreal tend to draw their opponent into a certain area of the pitch and then pass straight into it. Like it's just kind of baffling decision-making at times. And Wilfried Nancy, I think, said it in his halftime interview, like we have to be smarter in the decisions we're making here and think when we're playing. So that's something that they obviously have to clean up. And then until they do that, it's hard to imagine them getting many results when you're giving a couple of goals away each game. But there are a lot of positive signs here, I think, in terms of the quality of some of the football they can play. The way players like Mihailovic and Kyoto have been playing, I think, suggests they can be real impact players. But yeah, they've got to stop shooting themselves in the foot.
Gareth, who gets your vote?
Montreal.
Alex, unanimous?
Yeah, I think it's Montreal. Vancouver's schedule is it's rough, whereas they need significant improvement to start winning games. And while their improvement has been good, it's not going to be enough against LAFC, SKC, and Portland, which I think they're the next 3 that they're up against. In Toronto, obviously, injuries, rebuild. They've been showing good things, but I think it's all set up for Montreal, provided they can get some of their guys healthy.
I'll say this, Adam, though. I really like the way Toronto's been playing.
Mm-hmm.
Like 10 Canadians played. Shout out to like McNaughton, Chung, Petrasso, like these young Canadians. Like they're playing with confidence. They outplayed Columbus in the first half of that game. But this is what you're going to go through with young players who are still getting experience in Major League Soccer. Like there are going to be those difficult moments. That's where I think it's so harsh that a Salcedo doesn't play. A Salcedo steps in and plays, in the Toronto FC defense for that game in Columbus. Maybe they come away with something. I mean, that's how fine the line is right now between success and failure. But man, it's been a feel-good story in Toronto. Like, honestly, like these young Canadian players have played well, just understanding that with further additions, they'll be insulated a little bit more and maybe not necessarily thrown to the fire. And when you get some more players in attack, like I think Ollie brought it up last week, they're just a little bit thin in terms of the players that they can actually call on to go on and change a game off the bench. They need Akinola, they need Insigne, they need more players that can create something in attack to kind of fill out that team. And I think that they're in the process of doing that. But in terms of their game model, I think they're playing really well. And I'm actually excited to see this TFC team play every week. Like last year was like, oh no. Like they were absolutely unwatchable. Now you're like, okay, now there's something to see here, right? So
Yeah. Well, we'll hopefully as well get an update on Jaquil Marshall-Ruddy shortly, especially with Josh
yeah.
Cloak on the show on Wednesday. So we might
Didn't
have to
look
get a
good.
box of tissues out for Cloak on Wednesday. And I will say as well, if any Pacific supporters were wondering if Lucas McNaughton would always be purple, I can confirm he's always purple. It's right here. It's all over his face.
Ching.
Checked in with him yesterday, and it's already black and blue. But yes, Wheels, I agree that the young guys have been great.
No, his modeling career is done.
I think he'll be okay.
See, it's annoying.
Let's shift the
Maybe
conversation.
look average like the rest of us, huh?
Yeah, of the four of us, or of the five of us, if you include him, I think he'll be just fine. Football is also the priority, as it is for John Herdman, and that's where we're going to take this conversation next. The Canadian men's national team, days away from the roster being unveiled. We had the pre-sales succeed really well. Shout out to the Voyageurs for selling out their supporter section as well. Oliver, which bubble player needs to show you a little something in the lead up to this roster announcement and this window to really show John Herdman that they belong in the team?
I'm going to go with Daniil Henry. I think Daniil Henry's stock has probably dipped a little bit over the past few months. He got injured in that game against Mexico, which was obviously a big night. Well, going to be a big night for him, I think. Then he leaves his club in Korea as a free agent for a while. Not sure where he's going to land, if he's going to be playing regular football. And I expected him to play in Hamilton against the US, and he didn't. And Vitoria played back-to-back, which I thought was kind of telling at that point as well. So I think his stock has maybe dipped a little bit, but I'm going to buy low on it because I think it might be on the way back up. He's ended up landing in a really good spot at LAFC, got a start at the weekends, kept a clean sheet. That could be a really nice move for him and home for him. And we're going into a 3-game window again, where I think he'll see at least one start and get an opportunity to turn in the kind of performance that he's probably needed for a little while to further cement his place in this squad. So I think Canada would want to have Daniil Henry in the squad because he is so good in the room and such an important part of their culture. But you need to be able to be trusted to go into a World Cup game if you're part of that 23 or however big the squad is, right? And you can't just bring someone in because he's a good guy and he's well-liked in the dressing room. So I think he's still got a little bit to prove. But I'm hopeful he'll do so because I think he's in a good place with his club football now.
Alex, who gets your vote?
For me, I'm going to go with the Vancouver man, Lucas Cavallini, just because I was looking through the depth chart last night. You look at a lot of the positions, I kind of think, will this guy get dropped or not? It's for the most part, I think the roster is quite set in the, obviously barring injuries and whatnot. But then you look up front, it's really starting to tighten up. If you're looking just at the strike, you got obviously Jonathan David, Kyle Larin, and now Ike Ugbo scoring League 1 goals. All of a sudden, the place for Lucas Cavallini is just getting tighter and tighter. And obviously, until his goal against Houston, which was very well taken, you could tell he needed a goal like that just in how he celebrated and how he played after. That was his first goal since July 4th. A striker going 9 months without goals is going to weigh on a guy. So he obviously knows the pressure that's on him. And I think he's starting to realize, okay, guys like Ugbo are starting to find his form in John Herdman's eyes. Obviously, John Herdman loves Cavallini because, you can bring something off of the bench when Cavallini's there. He brings this edge to this team that I don't think anyone has, bar maybe Richie Larea. But at the same time, you can't be you can't be bringing a guy who's scoring 1 or 2 MLS goals a season when you're starting to have other options emerge. You're having young strikers around Europe that are, maybe scoring some goals. So I think Cavallini needs to start begging goals in MLS. And then in this next Canada camp, if he gets a chance, if he could sneak a goal or two, I think that would make a huge difference for his hopes.
Wheels.
I'm not sure if there is any. I honestly think that the squad is what the squad is right now, and he trusts his players and he's not looking to take away unless there's injuries, right? Like if there's players on the bubble that need to either step up or do more, it's kind of the players who are on the fringe of the 23 each and every window, right? Like I'm talking about the Gutierrez or the Broguillards. Like these are the players that, need to kind of maybe do more to cement their places. When a position becomes available, they're going to be top of mind. But other than that, I think that John trusts his players. I think that, even the players that were mentioned, they play significant leadership roles and play and have different value to Herdman in this group. So I don't think that he's anxious whatsoever. John Herdman's anxious whatsoever to go and kind of throw things in the blender and switch things up. I think there's consistency, there's continuity, there's quality, and there's chemistry, which I think is a really good thing that's been established over the course of the last year in World Cup qualifying.
I don't think he's going to want to. I don't think he's going to want to throw things in the blender, but you got to be playing, right? Like, you can't send a guy into a World Cup finals match if he's not been playing regularly, playing well for his club. Like, you're just asking for trouble, in my opinion. So
yeah, I thought you were asking about right now. I'd like, between now and November.
We are.
Long time.
Gareth, we know that Ollie doesn't listen to questions very well. He's too busy smashing his face into his microphone to recreate the Cavallini celebration. I enjoyed it. I hope producer Ollie had her eyes on it. Wheels on the and Ollie just sort of inadvertently brought it up, but this is a question that I think many Canadian soccer supporters have on their mind and are curious what John Herdman's going to do, and that's about Richie Laryea, who just hasn't been able to break in, which isn't a 5-alarm problem, by the way, Canadian soccer supporters and in Nottingham Forest yet, but we know how much John appreciates and trusts players in form. I'm not going to go as far as to say, do you think his spot is in jeopardy, but how do you think John balances this Richie Laryea situation?
It just depends on his fitness. He's going to be training every day at a decent level. Yes, not playing every week. And of course you prefer him to be playing, but I think Richie's just kind of cemented himself as just like a fixture in this Canada team. And, whereas you could rely on Richie when he's playing every week, when he's really informed to play like 3 games in a 3-game window, he probably can't do that in a window like this. So it maybe changes the way that Herdman uses him, but to suggest that he's on the outside or this affects his standing within the Canadian men's national team, it's nonsense. I just Laryea is far too important. He provides the adaptable nature that Herdman likes in this team. Since he's joined this team, they've gone to another level. He's respected. I don't think that that's a problem whatsoever, but yeah, like maybe he plays 1 game in this upcoming window rather than 2, or 2 rather than 3.
Ollie, what's more likely to you? Canada qualifying for the World Cup finals officially in their opening match when you are on location, by the way, jealous slightly, or when they come home and play Jamaica? What do you see as the more probable scenario?
Costa Rica, because I don't think the US is going to beat Mexico, and a draw does it for Canada down in Costa Rica. So I think they'll do it there. I think they could very well go and win that game. I don't think this Costa Rica team is particularly special. I think they're experienced and solid, and the games are always close that they're in. They're not going to get blown out. But I think this Canada team, even probably without Alphonso Davies, has the talent to beat them.
Alex, and one for you as well. It's wild to think that we're debating which date in the window is Canada going to qualify. That's where we are. It still doesn't feel real, and it probably won't until we see them in Qatar. But when you think back to Herdman taking over in 2018 and the squad he had then compared to where they are right now, did you fathom this? Did you imagine that in such short order, this team was not only going to qualify, but qualify convincingly and be a threat on the international stage?
I don't think I saw them ever being, or at least not ever, but I didn't see them being where they are now so quick. I think you kind of looked at the blueprint. 2026 was always the goal. You expected Canada to be a competitive team.
Wasn't the goal. 2022 is always the goal.
Well, 2026 was the main goal. 2022 is kind of there.
For who? For you or for the team? Because the team 2022 is always the goal.
Well, of course. I mean, every team out there is, if you're looking from everyone from Tajikistan to Canada or trying to qualify for the 2022 World Cup, it's not a question of goals.
You can't compare. Hold on, you can't compare Canada to some of these. Like, why couldn't and why wasn't it a realistic proposition when this journey started that Canada couldn't qualify for 2022? I know that 2026 was the lock, but this team firmly believed. Ask any player, ask any coach, ask anyone involved with this program. They've said it from the start that 2022 was the achievable goal. And not just that, they wanted to go on and win this, win and be the best team in CONCACAF. So I think it's a little bit of a fallacy to say that it was all about looking to the future. No, the future's now. Like this team has good players now. Other teams in this region are on the decline. I think it's a little bit disingenuous to suggest that like this is ahead of plan or anything like that. I don't know.
Well, I mean,
2022.
I don't know. I'd say I'm looking more from like you're just looking at obviously the players, what they believe, what the coach believes. I mean, if John Herdman's sitting there saying I don't believe I can make it in 2022, he wouldn't have a job with the Canada soccer team. So I'm not suggesting that you're wrong in that sense. I'm just saying I looked at that team in 2018. I'm thinking, yeah, it would be great if they can make the 22 World Cup. I'm not sitting here thinking in 4 years they're going to be on top of the World Cup qualifying standings. They're going to be one of the first teams in CONCACAF to qualify. They're going to have gone to the Azteca, gotten points. They've beaten the US, Mexico, Costa Rica. I wasn't sitting here and thinking that. I'm thinking this team has, talent at the time. They've got Alphonso Davies. They've got Jonathan David coming through. I think there's potential. I think in 2022, maybe they can, they get to that final round. They make some noise. Maybe they sneak in through the back door. I wasn't expecting them to come out and really blow teams out of the water like they have in surprise. So I'm thinking from that expectation, it was a complete a surprise. I was always looking, okay, if you can make 2022, it's a bonus. I think the players, obviously, like you said, they wanted to make 2022. They have the talent to make 2022. But, if we're just looking back at that first squad, you look at some of the difference in players that we've seen rise in the time. There wasn't Stefano Stachios, Richie Larreyas, Ike Ugbos. Heck, even Jonathan David was just a young, guy. I don't even think he was in that first squad yet. He didn't come until later in 2018, if I'm not mistaken. Like there's just so many unknowns with this squad, whereas there was no way to see they'd be where they are now. I mean, it's great, and I think it really harbors hope for what they could do this year and also what they could do in 2026 when a lot of these guys in their primes. But I just find it hard to believe that anyone could see where they are now being as something realistic 4 years ago.
All right, Oliver, I'm going to give you the last word of the show.
To be fair on this, I'm not sure Wheels was quite that bullish last summer when Canada was playing against Haiti and Suriname, and we were getting constant warnings about how difficult those ties would be.
Well, we were in COVID world where they weren't even playing a home game. We were living in some world of complete unknown. Alex is right. Like no one expected them to be this good. But to suggest, when we watched that team take the field in 2019 in CONCACAF Nations League against the United States, you didn't feel that something was completely different, that the standard was different. It played out before our eyes. So, and look, I'm not dating back to when John Herdman took over in 2018. I'm predating this to ahead of when qualifying began and where you set the expectation level to be. And look, this is a team. Great news here. Alphonso Davies is back at training for Bayern Munich. He is not being ruled out for Canada yet. We'll await some news on that later on this week. They've not only done this, lead their World Cup qualifying group right now. Alphonso Davies hasn't played in four of the games that they played. He's played 7 games. He's missed out on 4 of them, and this team is still 4 points ahead of anyone else. It's just incredible. What this team is, what they've been able to accomplish, and that's been instilled with belief from the outset here before qualifying started. Alex, I didn't mean to crap all over because maybe 2018 when John Herdman takes over and we have no idea what direction this is going to take or how it's going to play out, then yes, long-term 2026. But I think over the last couple of years, it's fair to say that expectation was that this team should be right in the mix to qualify. Absolutely, no doubt.
I don't know about that. I remember.
I read the question from beginning of 2018. First of all, I think I don't know if that was the way it was exactly framed, but no, I agree with that sentiment. I think it's at the same time we do, like Ollie has to mention. Obviously, even before the COVID world, there was the whole Haiti. After they lost to Haiti in the Gold Cup in 2019, who could have seen this coming? There's these moments where it really took breakthroughs for people to start to believe. We have to remember, it's like months ago, people were hitting the panic button after losing or drawing Honduras at home. We have to realize how quickly things have changed in such few months.
How quickly things have changed and how long we spent on this episode is probably a record for a OneSoccer Today. The good news is there'll be more of it tomorrow with Andy Petrillo, Lauren Armstrong, and Kaylin Kyle. And yes, Gareth Wheeler, your boy Ronaldo, probably single-handedly got Tom Brady out of retirement, so that's a well-deserved shout from you. Alex, thank you. Oliver, Gareth, thank you. We will see you on Wednesday, our half. We certainly will. And, of course, OneSoccer Today tomorrow with Andy, Lauren, Kyle. Thanks, everyone. See you soon.